Hi, Kate Fry here with another video. This one is on the Great Reset. Okay, before I begin, I'd like to go over some housekeeping stuff. First, I'm modifying, changing my video presentation somewhat, the direction I'm going. I'm going to try to make shorter videos, more videos, and make them shorter. This one, I'm hoping to do it no more than 20 minutes. A couple of reasons. First, most of my videos are a little over an hour. The interviews are actually kind of easy and fun to do. Often, most people I've interviewed, I had a good rapport with. It's just fun to do. I'm always a little nervous and a little shy, but it's always fun to do. It's fairly easy. The other videos I make, like the last couple of videos I made in China, about China, they're very labor intensive. Usually it took me about 3 or 4 days to make a video like that. The basic recording is easy, but I do research, usually like maybe 2 or 3 days of research. I don't use a script, so I internalize as much as possible, so I can do it off the top of my head. I have notes. I've tried a teleprompter, but it doesn't really work that well. Teleprompter software hasn't really worked. So I'm trying to do it off the top of my head as much as possible. No, the recording, basic recording is easy itself, but then I do a lot of editing, go over it, find like pauses or my dog barks, wants to go out, stuff like that. That takes a while. Then I find I like to use a lot of graphics, pictures, and that takes a while to find them, upload them. I'm hoping I don't get hit with copyright violations as much as possible. I try to use vintage photos. Sometimes even those people have a copyright on somehow or other, but I try to use vintage photos or graphics pictures used by left-wing groups who won't be as uptight if I use them. There's about China. There's this group called SlideShare. They make some really good educational videos on Chinese history and I assume other aspects of history too, but I can't use them. I mean, when I try to use them, it flags there's like a exclamation point, and so they don't let me use them. So that's time consuming. And then I upload the video. Usually, if it's an hour or longer, it takes a while to upload, maybe 2 hours or so, and then it just takes a while. And last weekend, I was going to make a video on U.S. imperialism. I'm still going to do it, but I thought I can't do this. It's a huge amount of work for what I'm doing. I appreciate, I usually videos on China. I got about 100 people saw them, and I do appreciate this. I do appreciate this, but I'm trying to revamping it. I mean, an hour long. It's a lot to ask someone to watch an hour long video, so I'm trying to keep it to 20 minutes. No more than that. Okay, so this video is on the Great Reset. Now, I'm going to be accused of being a conspiracy theorist, and some people on the Facebook live probably already think of me as a conspiracy theorist. But let me explain. The Great Reset is actually a real thing. It's a program which was announced by the World Economic Forum. It was first brought. They were leading a meeting. The World Economic Forum is an NGO, non-governmental organization. Basically, they host these meetings all around the world, primarily in Europe, but also Asia, India, and other places. The big one is Davos, Switzerland, the Davos Forum, put on January of each year. The World Economic Forum, it's a real thing. So the World Economic Forum was founded in 1971 by Klaus Schwab. It's hard to classify Klaus Schwab, who he is exactly. He's a German, basically management guru, I'd say. His background engineering, and he's written books on philosophy of management, business management. His big thing is stakeholder capitalism, which from a Marxist standpoint is absurd. I mean, ultimate goal imperative of capitalism is to make a profit. It's as simple as that. But he supposedly wants a fairer, more equitable type of capitalism. Okay, so he founded the European Management Institute, I believe it was called, in 1971. This was a period of transition in global capitalism, like around the time that the Bretton Woods Agreement, Bretton Woods system collapsed. And so this provided a forum for movers and shakers to figure stuff out. In 1970, it was originally business leaders. In 1974, political leaders were invited. In 1987, the name was changed to the World Economic Forum, WEF. Okay, and the big meeting is at Davos in January of each year. They have regional forums, mostly in Europe, but elsewhere, Asia and India, other parts of the world. Okay, now they have big thing. They have a big thing on stakeholder capitalism, and has seems to have kind of social justice bent, which is kind of nonsense in a lot of ways. But it's the kind of thing where Bono, the singer for U2, goes to, or Greta Thunberg, or etc. Go to that type of thing. Okay, so and in the 90s, there was a subject protest by the anti-globalization movement. Not so much now, but there were mass protests. Doesn't really happen now, probably because security is massively ramped up, and protests don't really haven't accomplished anything. This situation. So okay, so it's a billionaires club, or a multi-millionaires billionaires club. Like, membership ranges from like, so roughly around 100,000 a year to like 50,000 a year to several 100,000 a year. And then there are other types of membership. It costs like $30,000 just to go to a meeting, just to attend one of the forums. So it's an organization of the wealthy. It's kind of a billionaires club, basically. The movers and shakers of global capitalism, political leaders come there. In, I believe it's 2015, leaders of North Korea were invited, but it was rescinded after a North Korean nuclear test. And I believe in 2017, the Chinese leadership was invited. Xi Jinping went there, and this kind of was a bombshell. And when the World Economic Forum is one of the major meetings of the leaders of global capitalism. They're inviting people from communist China, but Xi Jinping was there, and he spoke out, made a speech against economic populism that was represented by Trump and other leaders of the time. It's kind of interesting. It was taking U.S. rhetoric and turning it on its head. Okay, and there are people like Bono or Greta Thunberg go there. There was a case, a woman, an activist, I forget her name, from Africa. She made a speech at one of these meetings at Davos, asking people, like, fundraising to help a water reclamation project, and she got money out of it. More power to her. But they have a social justice theme, but it represents global capitalism, which of course is the cause of all this misery in the world. I mean, in fact, the billionaires exist means they're a billionaire takes it from the working class. So anyway, so that's the World Economic Forum. So the Great Reset was announced, well, late 2020, and the big rollout came in January of this year, 2021. It was announced there are now it's a project that was announced, or proposals that were announced. There are three parts of the Great Reset, and this is the term that was used. First, kind of stakeholder capitalism, more from taxation, urging countries to change their taxation systems and spending systems to include, to make things more equitable. Okay. Second one was resiliency. This was during the time of COVID, reacting to the COVID pandemic, upgrade healthcare systems in countries, and greater resiliency, what they called. Third one was the fourth industrial revolution, and this is what a lot of the concern is over. The fourth industrial revolution, kind of complicated. They're like utilizing the tools or power of the fourth industrial revolution to enable us to do all these wonderful things, to survive as a society, as a civilization, more supposedly lead to a more equitable civilization. Fourth industrial revolution are things like nanotechnology, AI, greater AI, quantum computing, autonomous vehicles like self-driving cars, think maybe cryptocurrencies, or things like that. This is all part of it. So, and it was laid out phrased slightly differently by Klaus Schwab himself, and other spokespeople at the World Economic Forum had their own takes on it. So with the same general theme. That session, the January 2020 session, was opened by Prince Charles, of all people. He doesn't have a lot of credibility, and a Romanian economist Kristalina Georgieva, who's the current head of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Interestingly, the IMF is traditionally run by French people. It's really the power behind it is overwhelmingly the U.S., but French people, like leaders are traditionally French, like a figurehead. So Romania is like the Eastern European version of France, I guess. In some ways, one of the previous leader, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, had a rape scandal. So the leaders pushing it are not all that inspiring. So there have been tons of conspiracy theories about the Great Reset. It's a proposed fundamental restructuring of the global economy of society, and it could be potentially disturbing. There are two websites, official websites on it. The World Economic Forum has a section of their own website dedicated to it. It's open to the public. I mean, you can read their literature. They have a website, has its own website, the Great Reset website. There's a 20-minute film made about it, or maybe a little over 20 minutes. Very well done, very high quality. Uses social justice themes, Black Lives Matter, things like that. Is inferred a more just, equitable society, things like that. There's a book on it too that came out in conjunction, written by Klaus Schwab and a bunch of other people. Klaus Schwab, I believe he's in his 80s by now. Okay, so how should we look at the Great Reset? Something really scary. There are conspiracy theories about it. Okay, so I want to mention this in the beginning of this video. I forgot, but on I think it was 2017, I briefly met or chatted with David Harvey, the famous Marxist geographer. I'm not quite sure he's a Marxist, but I was at Left Forum in New York, yearly leftist meeting put on. And there was a panel discussion, which group organization which David Harvey's been associated with. It's like a Right to the City, and panel. I went there because David Harvey is mostly him and a bunch of younger people he's working with. I think in Baltimore. I don't remember, but the discussion was actually not very interesting. I don't remember much about it. But David Harvey himself chatted a little bit afterwards, and he said, kind of as an aside, he's like thinking to himself, he said, something like, I wonder if the ruling class will find a way to keep their leadership, remain the ruling class in a post-capitalist society. And I was kind of surprised by this because I assumed a post-capitalist society would be socialist, but not necessarily. And they use, even during this panel discussion, they mentioned a post-capitalist society several times, and I didn't exactly know what they meant by it. But I guess they've been discussing this. So post-capitalist society might not necessarily be better. In some ways, it could be far worse. And the philosopher Jody Dean mentioned this in an essay which came out a few months ago, talking about the possibility of techno-feudalism, greater mass surveillance, mass control of people. So this isn't just a right-wing conspiracy theory. People on the left are concerned about this too. So David Harvey did not talk about the Great Reset, of course, but my point is that this may be a way the ruling class could cope with upcoming changes. Like, could there be a possibility of through technological change, mass unemployment or mass underemployment, mass discontent? How are they going to keep themselves on top? They don't look at it this way, of course. They would phrase it differently, but it's kind of the same thing. And could the Great Reset be a part of this? I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know, but I think it's something worth thinking about. Okay, Russell Brand is former British actor. I believe he left acting, and he got noticed on the left a few years ago. He kind of dropped out of sight. Actually, got into New Age spirituality, but he has a YouTube video, a YouTube channel, and he's an interesting analyst. Once you ignore his New Age stuff, put that aside, he actually is a pretty perceptive analyst of trends of things going on. Yet, and he talks about the Great Reset. He says, I don't know. I don't really know what it is, but he talks about different viewpoints, and he interviews a wide range of people, not just right-wing conspiracy theorists, but people on the left, whole series. And he looks at this from a lot of different viewpoints. He has a whole series on it. And okay, so one person, Naomi Klein, She was a journalist, Naomi Klein. She's a Canadian journalist. Right now, she's one of the editors of Intercept. Her famous book was The Shock Doctrine. I have it back here somewhere. Um, so the shock doctrine is basically a history of neoliberalism. It has some flaws, but it's a masterpiece. It's important to read to understand, like the last 40, 50 years of history, how neoliberalism, the shock doctrine, the idea is to shock a society and move it towards a different economic system. It has started with the New York City financial crisis in the 70s. New York City was like a miniature social democratic society, a pretty extensive social welfare system, and that was destroyed. Next one was Chile after the Pinochet coup that shook up, and the Chicago boys famously came in, privatized everything, creating huge devastation. And then this shock doctrine or neoliberal came to be known as neoliberalism, spread around the world, several waves with Reagan, Thatcher, Helmut Kohl in Germany, Mitterrand even in France. It circled around the world and it's still going on, maybe kind of running out of steam, but this was a major philosophy. Okay, so Naomi Klein, she's an editor of The Intercept. I'm not really super familiar with her later stuff. Friends of mine say she's not that great. I don't really know. So anyway, she had an article recently on the Great Reset, and her article is entitled "The Great Reset Conspiracy Smoothie," and she talks about the Great Reset. First, she discounts the conspiracy theories. She makes fun of them, like Bill Gates. Bill Gates wants to inject everybody with nano chips to control them, or wacky conspiracy theories. She talks about that kind of distance herself. She says, the Great Reset is a real thing. She distances herself from the conspiracy theories and makes fun of them. And her take is basically that, yeah, it's something they've announced, but it's not a major departure. It's what the ruling class has been doing all along. And she says that, like the Davis Forum, every year is a certain theme, and this just happens to be the theme for this year. It's not. I mean, it's something that it's the horrible people. They are running a horrible, oppressive system. But this Great Reset isn't some major departure. It's what they've always been doing, and make just some interesting points. Another viewpoint is the journalist Whitney Webb. Whitney Webb, she's a journalist, an award-winning journalist. Okay, so she has an article. She's long thought that the Great Reset is something probably a lot worse and a lot more sinister. I don't know. Just read a little of a little bit about what she's saying. She has a really long article written with Johnny Vedmore, and she talks about a role-playing exercise, basically, which the World Economic Forum played with Spherebank, a Russian bank. It was a role-playing exercise, basically fighting cybercrime, hacking. It's a simulation of computer hacking called Cyber Polygon. It's an ongoing program. And anyway, she starts off with that, and she goes on to say, I'm going to read part of it here. It says the exercise, this role-playing hacking exercise, comes several months after the World Economic Forum, the quote International Organization for Public-Private Cooperation, that counts the world's richest elite among the members, formally announced its movement for a Great Reset, which would involve the coordinated transition to a fourth industrial revolution, global economy in which human workers become increasingly irrelevant. This revolution, including the biggest proponent, WEF founder Klaus Schwab, has previously presented a major problem for WEF members, we're a problem for WEN member organizations in terms of what will happen to the masses of people left unemployed by the increasing automation and digitalization of the workplace. So, yeah, what happens when there's mass unemployment? I mean, under capitalism, of course, this is a problem. Under a different social system, under socialism, it wouldn't be. It would be, we would have greater leisure time. It would create. We wouldn't have to work. But under capitalism, the system based on the imperative to make a profit. It's a problem for working people because they're out of a job. So it's a big irony there. But what if what if, like, okay, to go back to what David Harvey was saying, He briefly wondered if there's a way the ruling class would keep its power in like a post-capitalist society. To elaborate on that just a bit from a Marxist viewpoint, okay, capitalism is a system based on generalized commodity production. Um, and all the wholes are attached to all the parts of the economy society are attached to other parts, but system based on generalized commodity production, and our labor power, our ability to work is a commodity. It's a unique commodity. Like we rent ourselves out, and our labor power is bought and sold like any other commodity, but it's a unique commodity because it creates value above creates additional value. No other commodity, as far as I know, does this. So the creation of all value under capitalism is by working people. It's not by Elon Musk or any other industrialist. The working people create all value under capitalism. Okay, so uh, capitalist what's called extractors called surplus value system developed by Adam Smith and David Ricardo, and then Karl Marx had a different version of it. So the capitalists extract, they have a right to our surplus, but they were able to extract our surplus value, and we have no control of it. We're like alienated from the product of our labor. It's held against us. Okay, so what happens in a society that's more and more automated and the amount of surplus value becomes less and less? And it's already pretty less. What if it can't, I don't know if it can become completely zero, but what if it's very close to zero? How and the logic of capitalist profit accumulation would collapse, really. I mean, we're close to that already, but what if like nearly almost no people are required in the production process? We could have a post-capitalist society, but without working people in charge. It wouldn't be capitalism, but it could be something much, much worse. And my point is, maybe this Great Reset is looking in that direction. They kind of understand the movers and shakers of the planet, kind of understand what's going on. So Whitney Webb has more of a worst case scenario. What if mass structural unemployment, and how would the rulers keep in control? She thinks is a deliberately engineered collapse of the economy. I don't know if she's right or not, but so she goes on to say new economic systems that are digitally based and either partnered with or run by central banks are a key part of the World Economics Forum's Great Reset, and such systems would be part of the answer to controlling the masses of the recently unemployed. As others have noted, these digital monopolies, not just financial services, would allow those who control them to turn off a person's money and access to services if that individual does not comply with certain laws, mandates, and regulations. So it reminds me of a movie in the 90s, The Enemy of the State. I mean, how total control the security apparatus can have. If part of this is there's a believed move towards digital currencies. Countries won't issue paper money anymore. It'll all be digital currencies. That is, if powers that be don't like you, your money is worthless. Your money, you're just gone. You're made a pauper overnight. Things like that. Kind of okay. So, go on. Here we go. So, the World Economic Forum has been actively promoting and creating such systems, and has most recently taken to calling its preferred model stakeholder capitalism. Though advertised as a more inclusive form of capitalism, stakeholder capitalism would essentially fuse the public and private sectors, creating a system much more like Mussolini's corporate style fascism than anything else. I'm not sure I'd agree with that definition of fascism exactly, but some interesting points. Now, to usher in this new and radically different system, the current corrupt system must somehow collapse in its entirety, and its replacement must be successfully marketed to the masses as somehow better than its predecessor. When the world's most powerful people desire to make radical changes, crises conveniently emerge, whether war, a plague, or economic collapse, enable a reset of the system, which is frequently accompanied by massive upward transfer of wealth. And in recent decades, such events have been often been preceded by simulations that come thick and fast before the very event they were meant to prevent takes place. Quote, prevent takes place. Recent examples include the 2020 U.S. election. Interestingly, there was the role-playing exercise at uh, Harvard University for different outcomes of the election, U.S. election, the COVID-19. There's Event 201, which is a role-playing exercise carried out in October 2019 of a pandemic, of the novel coronavirus pandemic. As role-playing exercise ended a few weeks before the actual pandemic. To be clear, I don't think COVID-19 is a conspiracy. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think uh, it was deliberate at all. It could have very well come out of a lab in Wuhan. I don't think it was a sinister plot by the Chinese Communist Party. There are something like 30 labs in Wuhan, China's industrial city, Chinese version of Pittsburgh, but also has a very large biotech sector. There are about 30 labs. Many, not all, the many do biotech research, and they subcontract out to China, to American, especially American, French, and other firms. And some of their safeguards are pretty sloppy. So I don't know this for sure. And I do not at all think it was deliberate, nor do I think the COVID is a conspiracy. I do not at all think that. But there's some interesting, weird connections there. The powers that be knew something this might happen. There's 2019 role playing exercise. There was also one during the Obama administration. I mean, the powers that be were aware something like this could happen, and they didn't really take much action. I don't think it was a conspiracy, but there are some weird things going on. So Whitney Webb goes on to talk about Cyber Polycon 2020 event, which is about September cyber hacking event. And she says there's similarities. I don't know. I don't want to. I haven't gone into the weeds that much on it, but this could be this. I don't know what to say about the about this. Russell Brand has looked at different viewpoints of this. It could be a major direction the ruling class is going in, or it could be just rebranding the same crap they're always doing. So we have yet to see, yet to say. I don't think we should totally dismiss it as that's a conspiracy theory. I mean, the ruling class is always, conspiracy theory is something the ruling class is doing that they don't want us to know about. Like COINTELPRO was a very real thing. The FBI was infiltrating leftist organizations, deliberately disrupting them, setting groups one faction against another. Much of this we wouldn't have even known about unless it was a 1971 break-in by leftist groups into FBI regional headquarters, and it would have been dismissed as a conspiracy theory. Oh, yeah, no, that's not. No, we know they did it. MK Ultra actually was a real thing. We do have documented evidence that occurred for at least a 2-year period. Supposedly it ended after that time, CIA mind control experiments. Naomi Klein actually talks about this in the Shock Doctrine. Lesson for at least 2 years. We don't know what happened after that, but it's kind of naive to think that they never went there after that. And so on. So it's just worth thinking about. And I said, we could be going into a direction, a techno-feudal direction. I don't know for sure what's going to happen. Okay, this is a shorter video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you don't think I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm going to start making many more short videos about things. Next video will be about U.S. imperialism, my take on it. And have a good day. Thank you.